Hi everyone, welcome back to the Financial Goddess channel. If you've subscribed to our channel, welcome back. If you're new to our channel, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sitting here today with my daughter Jasmine. It's 1 year since she started her financial empowerment journey. So we're just catching up as to what has happened in her life and how is she progressing against both her career and financial goals. So, Jasmine, share with our viewers, did you end up going to college?
Yes, I did.
And is it DEMI International as per your original plan?
No, it is not.
No? What happened? Tell us.
So, I was looking at different colleges and I was looking for something significantly cheaper, better value for money, and I found one in Sydney for, I think it was 2,500.
That's right, which is 3,500 cheaper than DEMI International.
Yeah, crazy bargain.
Absolutely. And even with the cost of AFS, still cheaper.
Quite cheap. But the difference was that the course in Sydney was for 1 week and it was a full-time 5-day course, whereas Demi International was over a period of 6 months and it was 1 day a week. And because I was working full-time at the time, it would have worked out better to just do the 1 week rather than taking 1 day off for 6 months.
Since we already have grandma in Sydney,
Yeah.
there was no additional cost of accommodation, and since you're still under the age of 18, there was no brainer. That issue was non-existent.
Pretty much.
So then what happened after you booked that course and were excited and you were ready to go? And what happened then?
So after that, I think it was 24, 48 hours before the airfares, the course ended up cancelling on us, and I thought that might be my time to, change my path in my career rather than doing makeup to do something else.
We had to go back to the drawing board. Obviously not straight away, because I kind of went like, okay, well, no point of cancelling the flight to Sydney. You still had the grandma, so let's make most of it, as we always do with any circumstances, right?
Yep.
Just go and have fun. You already had the leave booked, right?
Yeah,
The airfares were already paid for, so we felt like let's make the most of it, right? And you still had a great time in Sydney visiting grandma.
Yeah, I definitely made the most of the week that I had off.
Yeah, because I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah.
And so then when you came back, we sat down, and I remember we were having this conversation as to what's going to happen next, because you did complete year 10 and decided not to go ahead with your year 11 and 12 studies, right?
That is correct. I did
Yeah.
decide that I didn't want to continue.
And what was your reason, if you don't mind sharing with our audience, that you decided not to go ahead with year 11 and 12?
The reason I decided not to go through year 11 and 12 was because I felt that there was no career path for me that needed me to go through to year 11 and 12.
And the subject choices,
Yeah, the subject choices that the school offered, they weren't going to help me in terms of what I had in mind for what I wanted to do.
and honestly, we tried so hard. So the first time we looked at them, none of the subjects were going to help Jasmine with a career, and I still wanted her to go with the 11 and 12. And so I said, okay, if it's not going to help you with career, maybe there are subjects that can help you with general life skills entering adulthood. And that's kind of how we approached it. So then you chose a whole bunch of subjects for year 11 and 12 with every intention of giving it a go. And you chose subjects that would have helped you build the life skills to become independent. Do you remember any of the subjects you chose?
Yes, I chose social studies, chose health, I chose food and technology. Then there was the English, math, and then dance, because that was going to be my physical component.
Yeah. It was how long afterwards that you found out that half of your subjects won't be going ahead?
I think that was like a month later, something like that. It was about a month later when they pulled me out of class and they were like, just to inform you, half your subjects have been cancelled. We'll need you to re-choose.
So we went back to the drawing board and was sitting there, and I was really scratching my head going, what on earth is there out of the subjects choices? And just to give you example of some of the subjects choices that we're facing, there was woodwork,
Yep.
there was metalwork, there was something to do with saving the turtles in the Great Barrier Reef,
Marine biology.
marine biology. There was also that wonderful option of accounting, which we knew was definitely not a path that Jasmine would embrace. So, in terms of the subject choices, there was literally nothing solid. And in addition, when we went back to look at the job research that you have done a year earlier in terms of the demand, we've realized that even if Jasmine was to commit to choosing some of the subjects, and some of them were through TAFE, actually there is no demand according to SIG job search.
Yep.
There was no demand for those qualifications anyway. So we had a chat about it, and honestly, it seemed like such a waste of time because it wasn't ticking any boxes whatsoever, which was a shame. It just did not make any sense. There was no demand for those jobs that she could get trained up for via doing year 11 and 12. There was no subjects that would have helped her on her chosen career with the beauty and makeup, or any of the 4 other ones that you had listed before that were of interest. And there was nothing that would have helped her with life skills because those subjects, sadly enough, got cancelled because there was insufficient numbers. So that threw us a bit of a curveball,
Yeah, so we
like
just
life does.
just decided not to go through.
Then we started looking at some other options, and we've actually realized that, in fact, one of your second preference at the time, and
Yes.
one of the things that you originally talked about and we posted in one of our initial videos,
Yeah.
you mentioned teaching, and
I
I've
did.
dismissed that because I said, well, if you're not planning to go to uni, you can't do teaching because it requires a uni degree. But once we went back to our drawing board, we've realized that you actually can do teaching without going to uni.
Yes, you can do teaching through TAFE, but it's not being a teacher per se. It's more of a teacher aide or teacher's assistant role.
So the added bonus of going to TAFE as opposed to the private college, as was Demi International or the other course in Sydney, was that your first course in Queensland
It's for free, yeah.
is free. And so that meant no further out-of-pocket expenses. And so can you share with our viewers the exact name of your course that you were able to register for?
Yes, I can. It is Certificate 4 in School-Based Education Support.
Which is the teacher's aide role. So
Yes.
when you finish that course, it will qualify you as a full teacher's assistant, teacher's aide. Yeah. And so are you still in Pitt's Place?
No, I'm not.
So what happened there? Share with us a bit of an update. So how long ago have you left Pitt's Place?
Ooh, it would be about 4 months. About 4
So
months.
4 months
since
ago
I
as we're
left.
filming it, yeah. Our last update was with Jasmine working Pitt's Place during school hours. And so then what has changed during that whole year of us not doing any recording? When you finished your year 10,
Yes.
I said to you, you either have to work full time or study full time. You can't just be at home playing Xbox, right?
I do remember that conversation very clearly.
Exactly. And so you went and applied online for some full time jobs
Yes,
at the
I
time.
did,
Yeah. However, unfortunately, at the time, Jasmine, of course, being a student with just year 10 experience, and what would you have had? Maybe 2 years hospitality experience?
Yeah, about 2 years at that time.
It was incredibly challenging for her to secure a full-time job because the only thing that she had experience in, which is hospitality, doesn't hire actually for full-time. It's mainly casual shifts. And any full-time job that she could apply for, even those that required no experience, she only had year 10 qualifications, and some of them had additional requirements, and pretty much all of them wanted you to have at least 1 to 2 years experience working somewhere.
Yeah.
So that didn't stop you from applying, but
No.
it just meant that unfortunately she wasn't able to progress any further. And so at that time, I did say to you, why don't you just chat to your boss?
Yeah.
Or actually, no, you came up with that.
I came
I
up.
think, yeah,
Yeah,
you did. Yeah.
I was like,
Sorry.
because applying wasn't really going well at other jobs. I was like to mum, I was like, hey mum, what if I just approached my boss and asked if I could work full time with them instead? You know,
That's right.
rather
yeah.
than having
It
to
was your
switch-
idea. Can't take
Yeah.
credit for it. Absolutely.
tried to, stay if I could have stayed with that job rather than having to change and
Yeah, and I mean,
transfer.
you really liked it anyway. You liked the staff there, you liked the vibe, so that was great. Yeah, and so then your boss agreed. So
Yeah.
you started working there full time around Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah. However, of course, that's when the cyclone Jasper happened and the major floods. So Jasmine's boss, like every other business here in Cairns, has been severely impacted by the floods and deposit costs on the business. And then in January, we had another cyclone warning, and a lot of people, a lot of tourists actually freaked out and canceled their flights to Cairns after what happened in December. That cyclone in January never eventuated in terms of making a landing. However, it did cause problems for a lot of businesses here in Cairns, including for Jasmine's boss, because if you don't have customers coming through the door to spend money, then you don't need so many staff working in. So that full-time hours didn't really work out as full-time per se, which was very much understandable based on the circumstances. And then we looked at sort of February that was going to pick up, and
And then it
there was a
became-
few issues
yeah,
around that. Yeah.
it wasn't really picking up as we hoped. It was very much still pretty quiet. Not many tourists coming around.
That's right. So you ended up doing only about 16 hours a week, sometimes 12 hours a week, as opposed to what was originally planned that you were going to do full time, about 38 hours a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was quite a bit of a shock because I love school. It was agreed full time, but obviously life, as we know it, always throws curveballs. So it's quite unfortunate that that one didn't really work out. Because I did like the workplace. It was a really nice workplace as well.
That's right. And of course, it wasn't, being there wasn't something that was Jasmine's. It wasn't your lifetime goal to work in Pete's Place for the rest of your life. But it was something that, should you have been able to do full-time hours, you would have stayed there much longer, because it would have allowed you to reach those financial goals, to save up for what we then thought Demi International, and to be able to save money to move out of home as you're approaching the adulthood. So it was kind of, you were taking that quite seriously. And the impact of not doing 38 hours but doing 16 hours, it had significant impact on your ability to reach both your personal and financial goals, right?
Yeah, it was quite difficult to be able to reach those.
We had to sit down and really redo the budget. Once again, we had to sit down and redo
to
the
the drawing
budget.
board.
Yeah, expectations versus reality, what was actually happening with it. Yeah.
It was good in theory, but in practice it didn't didn't really work out. So back to the drawing board we went, and
That's when it sped up the process, because like I spoke to you and I said, there's no point of you applying for more jobs. You're better off going and maybe speeding up the process of getting into college.
yeah.
That's sort of what pushed it, because originally Demi International, it's not something that was planned to be done at the start of this year. It was planned for Jasmine to do it a little bit later on, as she was approaching her 18th birthday.
Yes.
So to have enough time while at school to save, like obviously to save your money part-time,
money.
right? So that was the original plan. And so that plan, as you can here has evolved so many times, and it's just out of changing circumstances. And that's like life throws you a curveball.
And you just got to roll with it.
You got to just roll with it and go, okay, so what are my, realistically, what are my options now? And so that's when it came up, and I said, well, I said to Jasmine, like, there's no point, right? You've finished year 10. There's nothing for you to do in year 11 and 12. You left school full time. You got this full time job where you were supposed to stay for 2 years.
Yep.
From your experience of applying before Christmas, we now know that you're not in a position to actually realistically secure any normal job, because you need to work full time.
Yeah.
But you've got nothing. Nobody's taking a year 10 student with 0 office experience to work full time.
And I've got no qualifications either.
You've got no qualifications.
I've only got 2 years worth of hospitality
And
experience.
hospitality is not hiring full time. Hospitality is only hiring casual. So I said to her, there's no point. Like, you're wasting your time, because the only things you're qualified to do is work in hospitality. But hospitality is struggling, especially in Cairns. The tourism at the time, it hasn't really picked up. Hospitality is not going to offer you set full-time hours. It will be as needed. It will be a lot more seasonal, be a lot harder for you to budget. So instead of wasting your time another 1 or 2 years drifting through until you turn 18, why not apply? Why not do those courses now and get some qualifications, so by the time that you are 18, you have some sort of qualifications, There's no point. There's no good reason to waste that time.
And I agreed with the idea completely, because I thought it made a lot of sense. And there was nothing, couldn't think of anything better. It was quite honestly the best option that we had and that you came up with.
And look, we looked at every possibility. Anyone that's got teenager, if you're a teenager yourself, you know how incredibly challenging the economy is, how hard it is for you to get a job, and how little it pays and how unstable those hours can be. And so it can be quite tricky to reach financial goals and career goals, but you should never give up.
Absolutely not. Don't give up. Just because there's, challenges in your life, just because there's barriers, don't give up. Just find a way to get over those barriers and through those challenges, and, it will work out.
Yeah. And so then we talked about going through the beauty and the makeup course, right? And it didn't work out. And it's obviously it's faith. With the teaching, the reason, some of the reasons as a parent that I was happy for you to follow that direction, I guess the first thing is practically we looked at SICK before, and teaching jobs and teacher assistance jobs are in high demand. Not just in Cairns, everywhere there seems to be a high demand for teachers. So one thing that we knew, and that was important to me as your mom, is to know that whatever qualifications you gain, you can actually get an employment afterwards, because that's a key to your financial future, right? If you have a good job and you're working full time and you're making good money, then while you're staying at home, you can save money for a deposit for your own place. So there's no point of you going to uni, or there's no point of you doing some course just because it sounds good on paper, if afterwards there is no demand, or it's a very low paying job and you're still going to struggle to make ends meet. Right?
Fortunately enough, it was a very high in demand job with pretty good pay.
So Jasmine, when you started working, right? So it started off as a work experience. The requirement for TAFE for your course was to do how many hours of work experience?
So it's 100 hours, and it has to be throughout the entire time you're studying. You have to consistently have your placement.
TAFE doesn't organize the job placement, so it was up to you to start approaching different schools.
100%.
That's right. And so there was a choice between a primary school and a high school, because the qualifications allows you to do both.
Yes, but they've recommended primary school that I do my work experience, because of my age. It would have been a lot more difficult to be able to work with the high school students. It wouldn't have worked out well due to age and
That's right. And
Yeah.
they did chat to me beforehand because since Jasmine is a minor, since she is under the age of 18, everything still requires parental consent. So I was very much involved in those interviews and on those conversations. And I absolutely agreed. If Jasmine was doing her job placement in high school, it doesn't limit her just to the junior years of high school, like year 7, 8, and 9. It will be the entire cohort from year 7 to year 12, which means that there would be a strong possibility that that job placement would involve working with kids that are either her friends, that she already knows in social circles,
Yeah.
which is not ideal, or that there will be people her own age will be very hard for her to gain the quality experience that she needed. So there was a recommendation for her to work with primary school and to approach primary schools for work experience, and I absolutely agreed that that's a good idea. And then you were applying for the jobs, and it required you to send out some emails and send out some resumes, and then
Lots of, applying and trying to find the right, you know, really anyone who was willing to take
but
me
you
on
were
board.
lucky because your very first preference that you had, they actually called you up for an interview.
They did. I was
Yeah.
actually really happy about that.
Yeah, and you did take it as another sign.
I did. I did. Because when we did the makeup, it was, with the cancellation, I was like, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. And then when we went and looked at teaching or teacher aid work, and I did get the preferred school of my choice, I was like, yes, this is a definite sign. This is the path that I should be going through. And I did talk to you about, how that really set my mind to it.
And that was great. And then soon afterwards, we found out that you got the job placement, which was once a week, and you needed to get part of the job placement is that TAFE gets Jasmine to do work experience logbook.
Yes.
And so you started off with that, yeah.
Fill in the hours, and then there's tasks that you need to complete for TAFE as well. So that you're gaining the experience and you're going through situations that you would normally handle. So you've got, what you need to do.
That's the way of TAFE effectively making sure that what you're doing as a voluntary work experience actually is covered within your curriculum, is what they want. So it's kind of like their checks and balances to make sure that that happened. But lucky for you, soon afterwards, they actually approached you for a paid employment.
They did. My boss did come up to me and offered me a full-time contracted work experience through, and I was really happy about, because they were impressed with my performance during the volunteering placement.
They must have been to offer you, and you weren't there for such a long time. Was a few weeks.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks before they approached me, and I was actually really happy about being able to gain even more experience in doing a different role to what I was doing volunteering.
Yeah, and when they have approached Jasmine to do that work, that paid opportunity, we then had to go back to TAFE and check whether that still will count towards her 100 hours. Luckily, they said yes, it does, but you still need to do, obviously, your workbook.
Logbook, get it signed off, everything.
Yeah, that's right. And so then came a crunch time, because in order for you to get that full-time job, you had to make a very tough decision. We both had to make that decision about taking on or not taking that on, because it was two different directions, right? So Jasmine had a choice, and we had the discussion at the time, and it might seem like an easy decision, but in fact it actually wasn't an easy decision, because there's nothing guaranteed in life.
Yeah.
So the first choice was continue with the unpaid experience of 1 day per week while working at Pete's place.
Yeah.
With paid hours, and while studying at TAFE, which you've taken on a full-time
study load. Yeah.
study load. The other option was to leave Pete's Place because you couldn't do paid experience at school, and with Pete's Place because the hours would have conflicted
Very much, yes.
very much so, because Pete's Place at the time wasn't just weekend, but it was also during the week hours.
Yeah.
And the shifts were given to you only 1 week in advance, so they were
Yes.
always changing. However, even though the school opportunity was full-time hours, the contract was only for 2 months, and there was nothing guaranteed after that. And this is where we really needed to sit down and have a number of conversations about it to make the best decision at the time possible, because although it seems like a good idea, it's in your chosen field of employment. You're able to continue to build on the experience required for the TAFE hours, but you're actually getting paid for it, which sounds great. They are full-time hours, which is great. You're getting more than the 100 hours that you need of an experience.
Ticked off all the boxes.
It is
really.
paid, so it kind of boosts your savings very quickly. But then what happens when the contract ends? And in the worst case scenario that we talked about, it means that you have no job and no income, because if you're resigning from Pete's Place, obviously you can't go back to Pete's Place. That contract has a fixed date where it's ending, so there is no promises outside of that. It's not a permanent full-time job. It's not an ongoing opportunity. It had a set fixed ending date. So it was a big gamble. Staying with Pete's Place, on the other hand, would mean that Jasmine would continue to have stable income. You knew that, obviously we knew that you're always gonna get some hours every single week. We just didn't know exactly how many. We knew that the ideal conversation was full-time, which is 38 hours a week, but we also didn't know how long it's going to take before the tourist demand really picks up enough where your boss can and does need you to be there full-time hours. We knew from the previous weeks that that's what you sort of have guaranteed. It's 12 to 16 hours a week. It wasn't as easy a decision as it sounds when you have to look at both short term and the long term, right?
Yeah, it was quite a hard decision, trying to, choose. So it did take a lot of discussions, a lot of sit downs, a lot of thinking. And so then we reached the decision where I said to Mum, I was like, I will take the paid opportunity. And we'll just have to see where it goes from there.
We decided that the risk was worth it. And I think for me as a parent, the selling points in that decision where ultimately we talked about it, and you were quite sure that you do enjoy teaching.
Yes, it was during the volunteering. I was encountering students and talking with them, doing, little activities with them, and I really enjoyed it. I thought, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing.
That said, I think you touched on a really good point, that you don't know whether you're actually really going to enjoy a job or not until you give it a go. You can sit there and go in your head, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that.
But you don't know until you try.
Exactly. And once you tried it, that kind of sealed the deal for you, right?
100%. That's what, because I knew.
And you looked so happy. Like, I remember when you came back from your first few shifts, just the whole, the workplace culture, which is important, the environment, you were very happy in that environment, and that kind of sealed for us that it is a risk worth taking. For me as a parent, it's very important to know that my kids enjoy what they're doing, because they're doing it full time, and it's long hours before retirement. Like with Jasmine, I talked to her about it. That's over 50 years before she was going to be eligible for retirement. So I guess ask the right questions when making the decision. And no, you don't know. You don't know if you're going to like something. You don't know if the risk is going to pay off. Sometimes you just got to be willing to take a chance to make things happen. And seeing you so happy, like, seeing that big smile on your face and that sparkle return in your eye, and that beat in your step, that energetic Jasmine that I used to know from when you were little, it sealed it for me that it's definitely a risk worth taking. And from the research that you have done before on SIG,
Yeah.
I felt that even if when your contract ends, even if there's no more opportunities coming up, you're still studying full time,
Yeah.
right? And then when your course ends, you can then apply for the opportunities.
Yeah.
And there's a guarantee that at the time that you're a fully qualified teacher's assistant with some of that experience, you will be able to get a job.
Yeah.
So you might not be able to do more while you're studying, and sometimes that's okay. We just accept it.
Just roll with it.
What else can you do, right? So in a nutshell, a year later, forward 1 year later,
Yeah.
there has been a lot of changes. So we finished filming season 1 would have been in June
Right.
2023.
Yeah, June 2023 is when we finished.
We finished filming.
Yeah.
And even though originally my intention was to continue filming and updating you guys at least on a monthly basis, I've actually taken on a role as a Rotary president for our local club of Cairns Sunrise. And it just didn't give me enough time. I got so busy with that role on top of running my businesses and on top of the commitments with my kids and the changes that were happening in Jasmine's life that I just did not have the time to sit there and do another session like this. And to be honest, neither did Jasmine. There was not even weekends. We couldn't coordinate that time. So in effect, September of 2023, I put the whole channel on hold.
Yeah.
For those of you that have been subscribing for quite some time, you would have noticed probably that from September last year, the channel was hidden because I didn't know whether I will have an opportunity in the future to continue filming anything further because just things got really busy. And then, of course, with the cyclones in December and the floods and my roles in the community and in the businesses and being a mother to the kids, it was just never a good timing. As we're filming now, I have finished my role as a Rotary president for Cairns Sunrise. So it freed up a little bit of more time. There's a lot of changes that have happened in her life, and we're sharing this. Like I don't know about your reason, and you can share that with our viewers why you agreed to your mom putting your story out there. But for me, I'm hoping, the goal out of the series is to help other young people.
Yeah.
I think like that's important because there is so much negativity out there in the news, about how hard it is to get a job, how hard it is with the cost of living and everything else. And sometimes, I mean, you've been fortunate enough to have myself
Yeah.
guiding you through the steps, but there's a lot of young people out there who other parents don't have the time to be able to help and guide them, or they just simply don't know. The parents themselves are stressed and struggling, trying to figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
Life doesn't come with blueprint. So I appreciate the fact that you're coming back and you're committed to filming your journey, which is not easy because obviously it's about successes and failures and the hiccups and picking yourself up again. But I think it's important that we continue because
Yeah.
every person that watches that, they can draw on your experiences and hopefully find the motivation or find the solution, and maybe there is something out of your life that they can relate to, some challenge that you've overcome that can make it easier for another young person on this journey to overcome as well, not to give up.
Yeah, I did, agree to this because I did want to inspire and just give hope to others that are around my age or will be my age or a little bit older, just within that age gap, just to let them know that life will have its ups and downs, and this is a journey where you can follow and, hopefully relate to it. Hopefully it can give you some motivation to just get back up and continue doing what want to do in life. It doesn't have to be the same path. It can be very different, but seeing, as you've covered, there's a lot of negativity in the news. It's really hard,
It's not helpful. Reading the news or watching the news and all the negativity is not helping you how to succeed. It's just telling you what's going wrong at the moment.
And it's
there's
very
a lot.
demotivating when there's so much negativity. You don't
Yeah,
feel
for
like
sure.
it's really hard to find that hope and motivation to be like, okay, it's hard, but what can I do about it? And with it coming from a lot of different sources, it's very hard and demotivating. So then I think that's why we're doing this as well, to give that spark of hope and, encourage people to be able to get back up and push through the challenges. Just because something's hard doesn't mean you can't, pursue something or go through with it and try your hardest.
That's right. And you sharing, I think you opening up and sharing why, is important, but also how you overcome those challenges.
Yeah.
And having those conversations, us being able to have those open conversations is critical to you staying on the right path and being able to make the right decisions. Because there's a lot of options, and it's kind of, sometimes it's hard when you're young. It's hard to know what's the right decision.
Yeah.
But stay tuned. There's a lot of firsts happening in Jasmine's life, from choosing her career path to getting her first job in her career path and her first real job, as you guys saw a while back in season 1. And without giving too much away for the upcoming episodes and the season, there is a lot of firsts happening in Jasmine's life, and you can follow the journey with all the ups and downs, and hopefully you can be inspired to help to make the most out of your life so that you can reach your personal and financial goals. Thanks for watching. See you real soon.